and the big, highly technical empire.
The English Empire. Right?
The English Empire, the American Empire, lost.
Yeah.
That was the whole point.
You look at the situation now, where America is so proud of being the biggest economy, the most powerful military force on the planet. It's become the empire.
From England or Rome or, you know, a dozen other empires that went on for hundreds of years or sometimes thousands of years. We never got it. We never said, well, wait, this isn't the right thing to do. And we're still struggling with it.
In the Star Wars franchise, George Lucas explores said systems and ideologies from past and contemporary civilizations. R2, run the list. The Roman Empire? Check. Nazi Germany? Check. The United States of America?
Every nation in every region now has a decision to make. Either you are with us or you are with the terrorists.
Anakin, my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy! If you're not with me, then you're my enemy.
There is reason to believe that the Japanese city of Hiroshima, approximately the size of Memphis or Seattle or Rochester, New York, no longer exists.
In 60 days from this day, all Americans held prisoners of war will be released. All American forces will be withdrawn from South Vietnam.
Hello there. So how does Star Wars, a saber-dueling space opera that was created decades ago, speak to the politics of today? More plainly, what does Star Wars teach us about modern democracies and dictatorships? How does democracy die? Political science, the scientific study of political systems and governance, can offer some insights into answering these questions.
Universe, I introduce to you Dr. Erica Frantz. She's the go-to political scientist for authoritarian politics and democratization. We are lucky today because the professor will help us draw the connection between Star Wars and the real world. In 2018, she authored this book. In it, you'll find a great overview of authoritarian politics, as well as data trends and key studies from the field. And now, I'm going to quickly spotlight themes from the book that are relevant to today's video. Thanks, buddy. First, you may be wondering, what is the difference between a dictatorship, an autocracy, and an authoritarian regime? Well, it turns out modern research uses these terms interchangeably. Basically, they mean the same thing.
Roger, roger.
Numero dos. What distinguishes an authoritarian regime from a democracy? According to Frantz, the differentiating factor between an authoritarian regime and a democracy is the practice of free and fair elections. Yes, D2. It is a very minimalist definition, but hey, researchers find it to be a useful marker. That being, in a democracy, people use contested elections to determine who will govern them. In a dictatorship, good luck. Third, it is important to note there are different types of authoritarian regimes. In Star Wars, Personalist dictatorship is the regime that most closely resembles the film's political system. And finally, there are two mechanisms that we're working with here: authoritarianization and democratic backsliding. In Star Wars, the Republic experienced what Frantz calls authoritarianization, which is when a democratic system turns into a full dictatorship, while the US hasn't gotten there yet. Instead, it has experienced what scholars define as democratic backsliding, which is a fancy way of saying the gradual erosion of democracy.
This is getting out of hand. Now there are two of them.
And some, yes, they're both very similar. But remember, democratic backsliding does not necessarily guarantee a dictatorship. Okay then, that's all you need to know. Enjoy the video.
Suppression of the opposition.
Let's go all the way back to right about here, the Vietnam War. Long story short, the US gets involved, to which they go on to commit numerous violent crimes against civilians and end up costing the lives of over 58,000 American soldiers.
For it seems now more certain than ever that the bloody experience of Vietnam is to end in a stalemate. But it is increasingly clear to this reporter that the only rational way out then will be to negotiate, not as victors, but as an honorable people who lived up to their pledge to defend democracy and did the best they could.
In response, some of the largest and most sustained anti-war protests the US has ever seen.
We actually believe we can slow the killings in Vietnam down.
Far from ending the Vietnam War, Nixon expanded it into neighboring countries, deepening the conflict.
Just how big? We're talking millions and millions of students and scores of universities big. I'll put it to you this way. Then President Richard Nixon, the most powerful man on earth, had to be taken to a high security base for his own safety. The opposition made it very clear. Pull out of Vietnam and Southeast Asia or meet la résistance. Resistance from American civil society and from thousands of miles across the globe to Viet Cong. Okay, so by now you may be asking yourself, how does this relate to Star Wars again? Remember this guy? Guess who Lucas cited as his inspiration for Sheev Palpatine? You guessed it, Richard Nixon. And just like Richie Rich expanded the war in Vietnam, Nixon, as Darth Sidious, invaded the planet of Endor.
Take evasive action. Green group, still across the holding sector of each other.
Admiral, we have enemy ships in Sector 47.
It's a trap.
Fighters coming in.
There's too many of them.
Accelerate to attack speed. Draw their fire away from the cruisers.
Copy, Gold Leader.
Come, boy. See for yourself. From here, you will witness the final destruction of the Alliance and the end of your insignificant rebellion.
The parallels between Star Wars and Vietnam are strikingly clear. A rebel alliance from two fronts, spanning across separate spheres of the planet, fight against the mechanized, technologically advanced empire. Not convincing enough? Try this on for size. In Star Wars: The Phantom Menace, the Trade Federation, the largest and wealthiest corporation in the Star Wars universe, orders a blockade on the planet of Naboo. Coincidentally, the planet of Naboo just so happens to be home to Queen Padme Amidala and then former Senator Sheev Palpatine. But behind the scenes, the Federation and Sith Lord Palpatine are in bed together, meaning Palpatine was puppeting both sides of the war, stirring the pot. An evil plot to deceive the public into thinking you're fighting a war between good and evil, when in reality you are secretly prolonging the war for your own political gains. Sounds like it came straight from Sith Lord Nixon's playbook. You'd be right again.
Constitutional overreach.
All of us in school were taught that there are no kings in America. No kings in America. But 1 month ago, the MAGA Supreme Court effectively placed a crown over Donald Trump's head.
Have you ever heard of the saying, history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes? Take Mr. 45th, for example, whose refusal to accept the results of the 2020 US presidential elections landed him an indictment from the US Courts of Appeals. But on July 1st, 2024, the highest court in the nation ruled that former President Donald Trump had absolute immunity for acts he committed as president. In plain terms, this ruling grants him and foreseeable presidents immunity from criminal liability on anything a chief of office may do while in power. Interesting. Unlimited power. Awfully familiar, right? As a matter of fact, can anyone guess what historical president gifted Donald's legal defense team with this trump card of a clause? Hint, hint, it rhymes with Mr. 45th. This case, and all hail the Dark Lord of the Sith.
Good evening. The country tonight is in the midst of what may be the most serious constitutional crisis in its history. Nothing even remotely like it has happened in all of our history.
There was the arrogance of power. There was the assumption that executive privilege would always shield him. There was the assumption that he was out of reach, that they couldn't touch him, that he had reached the pinnacle of power.
Okay, now let me show you the money. Cue this scene from Star Wars Attack of the Clones.
Common skills are preparing for war, there can be no doubt of that.
Count Dooku must have made a treaty with them.
Unfortunately, the debate is not over. The Senate will never approve the use of clones before the Separatist attack.
This is a crisis. The Senate must vote the Chancellor emergency powers. He can then approve the creation of an army.
But what senator would have the courage to propose such a radical amendment?
If only Senator Amidala were here.
Count Dooku, a former Jedi Master, breaks ties with the Jedi Council because of the corruption plaguing the Senate and the Republic at large. So he goes on to build a separatist movement, officially dubbed the Confederacy of Independent Systems, which includes the backing of megacorporations and trade groups. Members of the Senate, however, eventually become aware of this matter. Axe-Mo urges other officials that they need to go ahead with the clone army plan. Bail Organa, on the other hand, implores that the Senate still has a say on these matters. But Mas Amedda essentially states that difficult times call for difficult measures, and suggests that the Senate grant Palpatine emergency powers.
It's a clear these separatists made a pact. We said these are Federation to trade. Senator Dello Belligan, in response to this direct threat to the Republic, Misa proposed that the Senate give immediately emergency powers to the Supreme Chancellor.
Order! We shall have order!
It is with great reluctance that I have agreed to this calling. I love democracy. I love the Republic. The power you give me, I will lay down when this crisis has abated. And as my first act with this new authority, I will create a grand army of the Republic to counter the increasing threats of the Separatists.
It is done then.
And now, here's the real kicker. The Emergency Powers Act in Star Wars mirrors very closely to the National Emergencies Act of 1976 here in the US. Now, take a wild guess as to what compelled these members of Congress to draft such a bill in the first place. You are on fire, my friend.
Control of the media.
I spy with my little eye a secret, a dirty little secret. Don't tell anyone or you'll just be another regret. The All-American Rejects. Not this band, this one. These fellas here, in some capacity or another, all played a role in the Vietnam War, but we'll let the star of the show take it from here.
Never has so much military, economic, and diplomatic power been used so ineffectively as in Vietnam. If after all of this time and all of this sacrifice and all of this support, there is still no end in sight, then I say the time has come for the American people to turn to new leadership, not tied to the policies and mistakes of the past. I pledge to you, we shall have an honorable end to the war in Vietnam.
In 1968, Nixon rolled out a rather momentous presidential campaign ad. In it, Nixon criticized the mismanagement of power by previous administrations' handling of the war, while also promising an honorable resolution to it. But did he?
For once, we've got to use the maximum power of this country against this shit-ass little country to win the war.
Okay, maybe not the power thing, but what about the honorable end to the war?
The only place where you and I disagree the first time is regarding the bombing. You're so goddamn concerned about the civilians, and I don't give a damn. I don't care. I'm concerned about the civilians because I don't want the world to be mobilized against you and to put I still think we ought to take the dice off now. I think we let brown people get found out about 200,000 people. Well, no, I'd rather use a nuclear bomb if you got that ready. That, I think, would just create too much. A nuclear bomb, no problem.
Nixon had the US media and the public firmly in his grip. On one hand, he deceived Americans through his patriotic yet effective war propaganda, so that with the other hand, he could bomb Cambodia, Laos, and an entire region with a literal flick of a wrist. To be fair, every member of the All-American Rejects misled the public about the US involvement in Vietnam. But Nixon took it a step further by increasing the scale of US involvement, lying about the number of American casualties, and undermining the press.
Whether they're for it or against it, seems as Canada should not do this, an attack on the integrity of government. And by God, I'm going to fight that son of a bitching paper. They don't know what's going to hit them now.
A federal court has ordered the New York Times to stop publication temporarily. The government asked for and got an injunction against the Times.
When it comes to the media and the press in the Star Wars universe, Lucas gives us a very limited view of these institutions. What we do know is that under a dictatorship, the media and the press run through the government, which is the case for the Galactic Empire. And when doing so, a dictator's bread and butter is installing a pro-government narrative.
Do you want to see the galaxy? Explore new worlds? Do you want the necessary skills to achieve fulfillment in life? Join the Imperial Navy today. Join together as brother and sisters defending our glorious empire in the name of Emperor Palpatine. We need heroes, and with the necessary training, you too can be the savior of the galaxy, foiling the Rebel Alliance's plot to dismantle galactic harmony and a unified galaxy. Join the front lines, shadowing the impressive AT-AT, commanded by Imperial heroes such as General Grievous. Fly in the sky or space to join the spectacular pilots the likes of Baron Van Rudor and Volt Scatus. Become an officer and join cohesive teams commanding and operating Imperial bases and capital ships, and experience the privilege of working on the iconic Imperial Star Destroyer. Join today and become a hero of the Empire.
Your man in Vietnam, James Daly, Specialist 6, United States Army. Jim is a flight engineer. nursemaid to the Army's newest workhorse, the CH-54. He babies it on the ground and bullies it in the air. Makes it carry everything from tractors and trucks to bulldozers and artillery. It's an ugly angel that works like the devil. Who trusts a 26-year-old with the care and feeding of $1 million worth of equipment? The United States Army. Even at its best, Vietnam is no tourist attraction. Jim and his buddies, like all GIs, make their own fun, and that's the best kind. Specialist 6, James Daly, your man in Vietnam. In today's Action Army, see your Army recruiter.
Electoral manipulation.
Long ago, in a galaxy not too far away, there was a boy that dreamed to become so powerful like the supreme leader of the galaxy, and to become oh so wise and to rule for an eternity. So the royal duke began marching in quest for political will. One day, however, a dark force awakened a war against a sovereign nation, shattering peace for millions. The good guys and the bad guys clash, unaware that they're all fighting for the same guy, like his itty-bitty minions. And little by little, the Duke kept growing and climbing up and up the hill. Inching closer to the top, he took a respected diplomat under his wing in hopes of gaining her trust at the highest level, because for his grand finale, he would manipulate her into dethroning the king and handing the crown over to the devil. This is a story about how an ordinary man bent democracy to his will and manipulated the masses into a galactic tyranny. But to understand his origins, let's revisit 1968. That year, Lyndon Johnson announced that he would not seek a second term in office. So, Hubert Humphrey, his second in command, became the Dems' favorite ticket-goer. But Nixon, hell-bent on winning and at all costs, convinced Anna Chennault, a foreign citizen diplomat, to sabotage Johnson's peace talks with South Vietnam days before the election, so that Nixon could broker a better deal to the Vietnamese government.
They realized it will not to their advantage to fight any longer. They will come in and talk peace, but until then, we will have to carry on our action. The longer we wait, the longer we hesitate, more of our American young men will have to be sacrificed, and we certainly do not want that.
And you don't believe in stopping the bombing or recessing the bombing?
Every time we stop the bombing, only give the other side the opportunity to rebuild their miracle.
To which LBJ cried treason.
Because I think that we're skirting on dangerous ground, and I thought I ought to give you the facts, and you ought to pass them on if you choose. If you don't, why, then I will a little later. Some of our folks, including some of the old China lobby, are going to the Vietnamese embassy and saying, please notify the president that if he'll hold out till November the 2nd, they could get a better deal. Now, I'm reading their hand, Everett. I don't want to get this in the campaign. That's right. And they oughtn't to be doing this. This is treason.
Now, the exact manipulation tactics used by Nixon received a standing ovation from none other than yours truly, Big Palp. Remind me, how does the story go again? First, you stoke fear to an entire world and divide the halls of the Republic through a bloody war.
Wipe them out. All of them.
Next, You befriend a royal diplomat and then dupe her into entrusting her people's fate onto your hands.
Greedy, squabbling delegates.
There is no interest in the common good.
I must be frank, Your Majesty. There is little chance the Senate will act on the invasion.
Chancellor Valorum seems to think there is hope.
If I may say so, Your Majesty, the Chancellor has little real power. He is mired by baseless accusations of corruption. The bureaucrats are in charge now.
What options have we?
Our best choice would be to push for the election of a stronger Supreme Chancellor, one who could control the bureaucrats and give us justice. You could call for a vote of no confidence in Chancellor Valorum.
And finally, you sit back and watch as your political pawn legitimizes your power grab, all while hiding in plain sight like a true Sidious.
To state our allegations, I present Queen Amidala, recently elected ruler of the Naboo, who speaks on our behalf.
Honorable representatives of the Republic, I come to you under the gravest of circumstances. The Naboo system has been invaded by the droid armies of the Trade.
I object! There is no proof! This is incredible! We recommend a commission be sent to Naboo to ascertain the truth.
The Congress of Malastare concurs with the Honorable Delegate from the Trade Federation. A commission must be appointed.
The point?
Excuse me, Chancellor.
Enter the bureaucrat, the true rulers of the Republic, and on the payroll of the Trade Federation, I might add. This is where Chancellor Valorum's strength will disappear.
The point is conceded. Will you defer your motion to allow a commission to explore the validity of your accusations?
I will not defer. I've come before you to resolve this attack on our sovereignty now. I was not elected to watch my people suffer and die while you discuss this invasion in a committee. If this body is not capable of action, I suggest new leadership is needed. I move for a vote of no confidence in Chancellor Valorum's leadership.
Earlier, I mentioned the various ways scholars classify dictatorships, and noted that one particular type was relevant to Star Wars. Well, let's expand on that a bit more, because not only do researchers warn that this is the most dangerous form of dictatorship, but also the phenomena of personalization can emerge even in democracies. If that's the case, then who would be able to sustain such a rule? Yes. Magnificent. A personalist leader for a personalist dictatorship. So where does Nixon fit into all of this? How about proceeding to degrade nearly every institution of the United States imaginable, from the courts
Calling to me is that the president, when this whole idea was suggested to him, didn't in righteous indignation rise up and say, get out of here, you're in the office of the president of the United States. How can you talk about blackmail and bribery and keeping witnesses silent? This is the presidency of the United States. But my president didn't do that. He sat there and he worked and worked to try to cover this thing up so it wouldn't come to light.
And his lust for executive authority.
And there is only one answer to such a record of failure, and that is a complete house cleaning of those responsible for the failures on that record.
And the Jedi Rebellion has been foiled.
What's happened?
The Chancellor's been elaborating on a plot by the Jedi to overthrow the Senate.
And the remaining Jedi will be hunted down and defeated.
To policy that extended beyond Merrick.
I still think we ought to take the dice on now. I think we let brown people get thrown down and we're going to well, no, I'd rather use a nuclear bomb if that's ready. And that, I think, would just be too much. The nuclear bomb, that would probably
a power that Nixon relished till the bitter end.
We think sometimes when things happen that don't go the right way, suffer a defeat, that all is ended. When you take some knocks, some disappointments, when sadness comes. Because only if you've been in the deepest valley can you ever know how magnificent it is to be on the highest mountain.
The inspiration for this video was shaped by my experiences as an American citizen and, obviously, by my nerdy obsession for Star Wars and political science. To be clear, my thesis is not that Nixon is a fascist leader or that the US is a dictatorship. Rather, there is compelling evidence to suggest that Star Wars, while yes, of course, a cautionary tale against fascist regimes like Nazi Germany, was first and foremost a direct critique of US politics. By making direct comparisons of Palpatine to Nixon, Lucas tells us a simple yet compelling story. How do democracies die? Meanwhile, Dr. Frantz's theoretical contributions to the study of authoritarianism allow us to experience Star Wars like never before. Unfortunately, months after creating this video, October 7th happened, where 1,200 Jews were massacred by Hamas, and since then, over 40,000 Palestinians have been slaughtered. It is a genocide, a topic that is well expressed in Star Wars.
I killed them. I killed them all. They're dead. Every single one of them. And not just the men, but the women. And the children, too. They're like animals, and I slaughtered them like animals. I hate them.
And George Lucas warned us about the Empire, us, and us enabling Israel to commit war crimes would, as Natalie Portman put it,
So this is how liberty dies. With thunderous applause.
Members of Congress, I now have the high privilege and distinct honor of presenting to you His Excellency Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel. Thank you.
Is one proud pro-American democracy, my country, the State of Israel.
I have Jewish friends and colleagues, much like I have Palestinian friends and colleagues. Anti-Semitism and Islamophobia are real. We have to understand that many US, Jewish, and Palestinian people feel isolated right now, afraid, betrayed. But I know this for a fact, with conviction, and that is safeguarding the lives and the existence of Jewish people should not come at the expense of recognizing the humanity of Palestinians. So please know that if you're Palestinian or Jewish, particularly in Israel and Palestine, is that I'm sorry, that I haven't done enough, that we as a nation haven't done enough to advocate on your humanity. And we have to do better. And for anyone who disagrees, I respect that. I truly do. But I think Lucas has one final message for you.
Don't try it! You were the chosen one! It was said that you would destroy the Sith, not join them! Bring balance to the Force, not leave it in darkness! I hate you!
The fact is that American Jews support Israel, and I understood that. And the fact is that every Jewish prime minister that I have known has enlisted American Jews to bring as much pressure as possible in the political process on American presidents. That's understandable. I don't object to it. Now, a president must not go along with it on occasion, because let me explain something about what is called the Jewish lobby in this country. In the first place, Jews, understandably in the United States, because of what happened in World War II, because of the Holocaust, are going to put first priority on the survival of Israel. Now, as good Americans as they are, they believe that America's survival and security is directly related to Israel's. In other words, their belief is that being for Israel first means that does not mean you're putting America second, because they think it goes together. An American president, however, has to approach it in a different way, in my opinion. He's got always to think first of what is best for America, and that's true whether it has to do with the Israelis or whether it has to do with the Irish or the Germans or what have you, or the Poles, etc. Usually what is best for America is also best for Israel and vice versa.
But on occasions, for example, an American president must make a decision that does not, in effect, give the Israelis a blank check. And one example of that is a decision that I made. I decided early on in our administration that we were going to seek good relations with Egypt and others of Israel's neighbors. Many of my Israeli friends didn't like that because they wanted a special relationship with Israel and Israel only. But I have always said that Israel's interests are better served to have the United States a friend of Israel's neighbors and potential enemies than to leave a vacuum which the Soviet Union would fill. I still believe that, and I think that should be American policy today.